Good. So, I'm Donnie, and this is Marie. Actually, no, this is Bob. Where the hell are my glasses? Can't see anymore. Ladies and gentlemen, I am Red. This is Bob. That's really what they call him. Sentry Bob, Punching Bob, Fighting Bob. Is so that you practice smacking something, get your anger out, doing on a somewhat live human target. I want to thank Azim Jim for donating this guy here for these purposes. I'm making this video. I wanted to do it completely different. As a matter of fact, I made a video a couple of days ago that I was just about to post. But I listened to Candace Owens, and turns out I was right. There was no 30-06. Okay, they said it was a World War I Mauser, and you can look this up. World War I Mauser M98, 30-06. They never made it. 1898. That's M98 Mauser 98. The year it was made in production. M98 never made a 30-06 until 1935. I believe it wasn't even then. I think it was a Polish knockoff. And they said it was a World War I, which really struck me strange. That's water under the bridge. I can get into that later. But the other factor was the serial number. Well, Tyler would probably use his dad's old gun so that it didn't have a serial number, so they wouldn't be able to trace it, which he said in the text to his lover. I don't know if it had a serial number or not. Why would you use that gun then? Why would you use a 100-year or even a 70-year-old gun to do this job where you're going to be world famous for? It made no sense. But I went and checked and said, well, when did Mauser start putting serial numbers on M98s? And it was 1898. So Mauser has never not had a serial number on their M98s. So no serial numbers were always there, and there was no such thing as a World War I 30-06. But she said he was not shot with a 30-06. And I'm sitting there screaming, I know, I've known all along. Like I said, I was gonna do this right. I was gonna put in clips and, show, what I was talking about, talking with Peak Prosperity and was in Valhalla and Paramount Tactical, all these guys. I was gonna, show them their videos, but I don't have time to do that because this is moving too fast. And what got me, I was like, okay, I got to do this video. I'm sitting here in my garage, and I didn't want to do any of this. I was done. No sleuthing, no politics, no videos, no nothing. I was done. Try to get out, and they pull me right back in. I have to do this. Why? Because he was not shot with a 30-06. My back is really bad, so I'm going to be leaning a lot. Apologies in advance. Yes, I've got deer back here. That's Rufus. Not bad. Yeah, he's there to brag, but he's also there to serve a very good purpose. And I'm winging this. I've got a bunch of notes over there next to Tula the skull, and I'm winging this. So essentially, it was not shot with a 30-06, and he was not shot from the front. What you people are doing is, yes, I know it's the Trump administration. I voted for. I ran for office numerous times on the Republican ticket. Okay? Like I said, I was going to be done. I was going to be done with all this. But doesn't mean this administration or the people in this administration, the same ones that tried to put him in jail, remember? Oh, it's got to be a 30-06. The records say that the autopsy said blah, blah, blah. Well, at least we got the autopsy to say that. Okay? And I'm going to show you why it is not a 30-06 and how and why he was not shot from the front like anyone says. In fact, I just put a word, it just got accepted in Urban Dictionary. I think it's like 38 of them. All right? Wine bricking. All right, back in the day, a wine brick, it was a brick of grapes, dried grapes that came in a paper package, back during Prohibition, okay? It said right there on the package, do not put this in a gallon of water and then put that in a cool, dark place for 20 days because it will ferment, and that would make wine, and that would be illegal. Essentially, telling the people how to do what they're not supposed to do, okay?
Colonel Daniels, this is General Ford. I remind you that you are interfering with presidential authority. Sandman has a specific line to the target. If you are in his way, he cannot complete his bombing run, and that will be held to pay. Do you understand? Over.
Why'd he say that? Beats the hell out of me.
Lyin, are you dumb or something? You just told him how to stop the...
That's essentially what everybody's doing, and they don't realize it. They're wine bricking because they have what I call, which is another Urban Dictionary word I have, Scrabble blindness. Okay, you're so focused on using those couple of Q's and U's and X's in order to get the best, most points instead of actually just playing the game and scoring the points where you can. They're so focused on, I got to prove it from the front. They're contradicting everything they're saying. They're saying, I can't make the physics work. No kidding, you can't make the physics work because the physics don't work. All right? Pardon me. It's cold, of course. It's Wisconsin, and my nose is running. So, where do we start? Well, first off, I think we should start with, I do have a couple of notes in here. Start with a little bit of physics. Now, I never took physics. I'm not a doctor. I don't play one on TV. Okay? I was pre-med, undergrad, theater minor, secondary education minor, and but that's about the extent of my medical training. It was enough to take microbiology and virology and immunology to where I knew right away that this COVID thing was bunk. Hey, right, once again, I hate being right because I've never read anything good like the lottery, all right? So first off, no bad blood between Chris Matheson. A lot of this came from him. He did fantastic work, but and what I said in the other video that's probably not going to get published because why? He had the chocolate, all right? Range Day Bro had the peanut butter. Nobody's putting together to make the Reese. The Reese cup, this delicious, especially the minis. Matter of fact, if whatchamacallit made a snack size, you'd beat out the Reese's Mini, but the Reese's Mini is the best. We need to do the same thing here. Everyone is stuck on this garbage that he was hit up here. They're talking about, oh, there was 2 shots. There was not 2 shots. There's not 2 shots. No bad blood, no animosity for you guys. All right, I'm just basically, I feel, and like I said, maybe you guys are wine drinking, like kind of telling everybody, it's like, well, I can't make the physics work, and one of the things he said would take 12,000 pounds of pressure in order for a 30-06 run, which of course we don't know. We know that it's not because they said in the autopsy, don't over this, it's holding it, to make it go and do a 30-degree turn. It's like, well, no kidding, but you don't need that. They're coming down here, yet it shatters the vertebrae there. No. Second thing we need to do is talk about ballistics, all right? The only reason I even remember this equation because a buddy of mine who was a NASA astrophysicist, like actually calculated part of the Hubble telescope, didn't drink a lot, but one night he got really messed up and says, he's screaming, force equals mother f***ing MA. Force equals mass times acceleration, okay? You'll probably remember that now from force equals mother f***ing MA. Trying to keep this clean so it doesn't get violated and whatnot. But force equals mass times acceleration. Okay, if you got a car that hits you at 15 miles an hour, all right, might hurt, but get knocked down and whatnot. Train with all that mass hits you at 15 miles an hour, big difference. Take a set the size of a bullet, throw it at 15 miles an hour, it's not going to do anything. Baseball at 90 miles an hour. I mean, that video years ago where they cracked off the bat, hit the pitcher in the face. He had to have reconstruction, but he lived. I don't even think he got carted off the field. He walked off the field. Okay, so that's the key. Is you got this bullet. Right, and we're not going to talk about, it might be the Jews in Israel and Eric or Kirk and all that, and who's doing what and who killed. I don't care. I'm just telling you that it was not from the front and it was not a 30-06, which of course we don't know. But the way bullets are measured is in velocity, right? How fast it's going, and it's foot-pounds. All right, basically how powerful it hits. Its stopping power is what they call it in the gun world. Okay, so. That's measured in foot-pounds, and this was nicely reiterated by Chris Matheson from, I think it's Prosperity Performance. I think it's Prosperity. If you take a pound, hold it a foot above the ground, and drop it, whatever energy gets transferred into the ground, that's what a foot-pound of force is, okay? Bullets pretty much travel at least 1,000 foot-pounds. So you've got 1,000 pounds dropped a foot. That force, when it makes contact with something, all that energy gets directed into there, whatever it is. If it's a big piece of stone, it all goes this way. It goes a little bit into here, but it goes somewhere. Now, bullets, when they enter, you've got different kinds. Full metal jacket, FMJs, full copper is basically designed to go pretty much right through. All right, hollow points are designed to expand. So when it goes in, you've got the entry one, which is almost always the size of the bullet, okay, which is almost kind of how you can tell what caliber it was. I know a guy, the state I hunt in, up until a few years ago, you can only hunt with 12 gauge or a shotgun, slug, or handgun or lever action, 44 Magnum, 357 Magnum, things like that. And they started switching, they finally switched to high-power rifles. Well, and he's dead now, I can say this. He would hunt with a high-power rifle. And back in the day, there was no internet check-in. You had to go to a check-in station. Sometimes the DNR people were there, you know, where'd you shoot at what time, blah, 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 what county, blah, blah. So, and then you get your tag, and it was like a zip tie, a metal zip tie that you clicked. So when you cut it, you basically couldn't use it again. But they tracked that. But he was always afraid that, you know, they'd find out that he didn't use, you know, so he'd always say, you know, 44, 357, never got caught. Died never getting caught. But basically, the entrance is the size of the bullet, the caliber of the bullet. Okay. Now, again, full metal jackets go almost all the way through. But even when you're shoveling snow, okay, when you shovel snow, you start up with this much snow, 4 inches or whatnot, because it's taking all that's there and dragging it along with. Bullets do the same thing, especially hollow point bullets. That's what they're designed to do. They hit, they expand, what's called mushrooming out, and they go through, and they leave a much wider cavity, because if you're trying to kill deer, I always use deer, for example, Rufus here, you want it to enter and do as much damage as possible, damage as much tissue, so you knock down your game and you get a nice clean kill, a nice clean harvest, okay? Now, for this, the reason I have these three things here, because this Rufus here was taken with a, again, not to brag, but not bad, a Remington AccuTip 385 grain 12 gauge slug and a 3-inch shell. All right. Now, it hit him. It was 161 yards away. Now, I know what you're saying. If you saw my gun, you'd understand. 161 yards, 12 gauge slug. It entered just below the brisket here. But this bullet I have because it wound up right here on his other shoulder in between the skin. They said Charlie's bullet was in between the skin. Okay. Now, I don't know if you can get a good look at this bullet here. You see that? You see how it mushroomed out? All right. Now, that fella, the red with the trim on it, that was the next one. That was shot at 40 yards. I think same stand. Yeah, same stand. 40 yards. Okay. Now, you notice, same mushrooming. Okay. And you notice that it's a little bit shorter because it doesn't have as much weight retention, what they call. So essentially, most of this got blasted down, all right, because it had higher velocity, therefore it had higher stopping power, more foot-pounds to hit it with. That one, all right, was shot on the left side, but I found it in the skin. Both of these under the skin by the shoulder. The reason I pointed it out, one, to show people how bullets and ballistics work, at least these ones that are expanding. All right, there's other kind, full metal jackets, hydroshock, which are fragmenting, which maybe we'll talk about later. The reason I say is because 40 yards and 4 times that, and yet it managed to embed itself in the shoulder right under the skin. So yes, bullets do strange things. One of my hunting buddies, he shot, it was actually right there in the forearm, skinning it. Same thing with me. Instead of the shoulder, it was the forearm. Okay. I can't remember who it was. Again, I'll do hopefully another video where I say the same stuff and all, but it ran up some guy's arm and around the back. But I remember in high school, I don't know what this was. I think it must have been suicide prevention or something. It talked about how, hey, just because you want to, and I said suicide, so what, but the suicide prevention, or self-deletion, whatever, it doesn't get me, just take it out. The kid that did it used a handgun, all right, bam, basically that knocked him out. And the bullet went around and embedded right here on the other side of his head, on his ear, okay? Then when he came to, he's like, what happened? Now you've got to live with the embarrassment. It's like you couldn't even do that right. But that's a good thing because then you go, wow, maybe there's a reason. So, you know, I always look at things glass half full. When you live my life, trust me, you got to look at things glass half full. So I understand bullets do strange things, okay? But to say there was a front shot, 30-06, hit on a downward angle here, all right, didn't blow anything out, but basically destroyed his C. So you've got cervical C, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Then your thoracic vertebrae, which is the bump right here on your back, okay? Right here, but right there on your back, okay? shattered all these. C2 to C6 were gone. Okay, and it embedded, the bullet embedded under the skin, they said, on the T1, on the thoracic vertebrae. Okay, there's no way that any bullet, unless it's a very light one, okay, is going to do that, destroy all this, but not go through. Yeah, maybe, but again, chances are, yeah, you know what, I might one day, be the starting center for the Los Angeles Lakers. Chances are, that's not going to happen. My old fat white ass is not going to be out on there, with any NBA players. Trust me. So, where do we begin? I don't know. Like I said, I'm winging this. We get Rufus out of the way here, so I don't knock him off and ruin the taxidermy job. So, they claim that it was a 30-06 from up here. Okay? Now, I was going to, like I said, do videos. I was going to start off talking about JFK. Because that's actually important. One, because once I tell you what I'm going to tell you, and you can look these up, and I'll try to actually link the video so you can actually, instead of me putting them in the video, you can at least go and look and see what I'm talking about. The key thing for me, why I realized that this was complete garbage, aside from the fact that a front shot is going to obliterate, especially with a 30-06. And maybe the autopsy, they just changed it because they realized, ooh, no one's buying this crap. Again, that doesn't mean that they can't pay off a politician, but you can't pay off a scientist or doctor. Real simple. We'll get to that later on who might have, or where people did the shooting. Okay? But, like I said, 30-06 is not going to go through the neck. Now, the reason I wanted the Kennedy thing is because in 2007, and how many people know this about me? So 20 years ago, so this probably would have been 2006 because it was released in 2007. Back on cable TV, there was a show on Spike TV, Channel 51, and they had commercials on it that said, and CSI was huge at the time, like the original CSI. It just took off. I think it started in 2000. So they started CSI Miami, CSI, blah, 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 blah. So they said, you think you got what it takes to solve crimes? All right, we're doing a show where the average Joe is supposed to solve a crime. So I auditioned. I sent in the tape. They sent me, packet of stuff. I had to do an interview and tape myself and then send it back to them. So basically, I was a finalist. All right. I was one decision away from actually getting on the show. All right. I didn't get on the show. And then when I saw the pilot, I kind of found out why. So what the show was is there was 2 teams of 3, right? And they're pitted against each other. So what the show was, and that's almost one of the reasons it went off the air too, because it was very, very graphic. What they did was they took crime scenes that were already solved, and they did Hollywood-level recreation. All right, talking everything, blood, guts, and So if there was like Silence of the Lambs, where Clarice opens up the box and it's a little ballerina, if that exact thing was on the desk in somebody's room, that was on the desk in the recreation of the show. So. And it was supposed to be just average Joes. And first off, you could tell if you can get a hold of a copy of this. Each team had a hot blonde, and one had a ex-gang member turned law student, and big neck tat back before neck tats were a thing. But and these average Joes, and this is 20-year-old information. I could be completely wrong with all this stuff, but I'm right about it wasn't a 30-06 from the front. So it was a lawyer, one of the hot blondes was a lawyer, an EMT, a fireman, a ex-gang member turned law student, a nurse, and then somebody else like in a medical profession. I'm thinking, why don't you get like, a carpenter or somebody cashier at a dollar store? It's like, these aren't average Joes. It's like somebody has tied in with the law or the medical community, like all the fire, they have CPR training and all that. So I'm like, really? This is what you're going to do? And of course, I figured it out because of what was in the garbage can. So if they ever air that, and it's the pilot episode, I don't bother watching it other ones because, like, really? What was in the garbage can? Right there, there's your MMO, which is probably why I solved this damn thing. But neither of the teams solved anything. And what it was, the crime that had taken place is that somebody called 911, and a man and woman, husband and wife, all right, were shot in their bed. right, with a 264 Winchester Magnum. And if you go look on the Hornady ballistic chart, sorry, I shoot Hornady except for this Remington. Everything I shoot's Hornady. If somebody wants to pay me to, pine for their ammunition, hey, I'm a hoe. I'll do it. But right now, I use Hornady everything. So Hornady Ballistics is only one listing for a 264 Winchester Magnum. Okay, the dad was shot in the face. The mom was shot twice in the chest. Okay, and they concluded that they said that you got the foot of the bed in the butt. So, bam, shot the dad in the head. And they have a teenage daughter too. So they shot their dad in the head and they shot mom twice in the chest. And dad's shot in the head. Okay. He was, I believe, was sleeping kind of like this up on a pillow, kind of like your head's a little bit forward. And the amount of blood splatter was insane. Now, I'd been hunting at this time for at least 10, if not 15 years. I never headshot anything like a deer against something to where, you could see the splatter on the wall, but I couldn't believe how much blood splatter there was. And neither could the contestants, especially one of the female contestants. I can't believe it. So what they did, and this is before internet videos and before everybody had a high-speed camera, they showed what happened to a watermelon. And you get the entry wound and the watermelon just shattered. Now, what one of the detectives said, and this is key. This is absolutely key to this entire thing. And what made me realize this changed my entire opinion on the Kennedy assassination. And when I watched it again with this information, I'm going to give you this information. You can go watch it yourself. But the head, the skull is basically, let's get Tula here. The skull is basically a pressurized unit. Not pressurized like an AC or coolant system, but basically, and it's pretty hard to get through this. Right? Obviously, a bullet traveling foot because mass equals force equals mass times acceleration. As long as it's going fast, you'll get through there. All right? And so if a bullet goes through your head, everything, just like the snow on the shovel, has to go somewhere. And this is like a giant pressurized balloon. Has to go somewhere. And I just watched today, can't think of the guy's name, Copper Kaya. Even he said, federal agents have seen people shot, and usually when you shot the head just explodes. Yeah, it does. That's what this detective said, which is why that shot with a 264 Winchester Magnum just splattered his brains and blood everywhere. So that's key. This thing is pressurized. All right? Now, regarding this information and then the Kennedy assassination, okay? So, let me use Bob here. All right, we've all seen the movie JFK. Back and to the left. Back and to the left. I'm trying to keep this clean so I won't tell you a story from college, but maybe in the next video. So back and to the left. All right. Oh, he was shot from the front. Well, there's another video, hopefully I'll link it, talking about what happened. So he was shot from the back. Oh, but the fatal blow came from the front. Wow, just like they're saying now. No, it did not. It came from the back. The first shot hit him right about here in the neck back area. That's why he goes like this. I believe that's when Governor Connolly leads back and says they're going to kill us all. And then he gets the shot. So if you watch the Zabruders tape, it's frame 313. Okay? So frame 311, frame 312, frame 313. All right? Let's see. Which way do you want to do that? Frame 13, you see him get hit. Well, actually, you'd be looking at it this way. Frame 13, you see him get hit, okay, and back into the left. So basically, you see this. You actually see the exit splatter. And again, this is simple physics, all right? Look with your eyes, right? All these experts, just like the COVID experts, doing all this and that. Look with your eyes. Look at nature. What does nature do? What happens? Entry wound, there's the size of the bullet. Exit wound explodes because all of what's in front of it has to go somewhere. And especially in this nice little pressurized item here. Now, a watermelon is so soft, all right, it blows up. It starts blowing up this way first, but it cracks everywhere, okay? The bullet came in, and if I remember correctly, it said, right, the occipital protuberance right here, that bump at the back of your neck, okay? It was a centimeter to the right. So here it is, centimeter to the right and a little bit up. Okay, so what we're looking at is a quadrant. We got this and this. So essentially add another line from the suture here. Okay, sorry about the lighting. Again, I don't know my studio. I was done. So you got a quadrant here. So we're talking about front and back, left and right. We're only concerned about the right for now. It enters here. And if you go and look online, you can find autopsy pictures of the hole in Kennedy's head. And then they also, and of course I can't find it because, oh, I want to say another thing. Is that Spike TV murder? I looked at it and tried to see if I could find the episode. They don't exist. But it was Spike TV and all that was bought out by CBS Paramount. So CBS Paramount owns Spike TV and the show Murder. So especially after I say this, it'll probably never see the light of day because I know that goes into the conspiracy. It's Jews. What is his name? Ellison, Larry Ellison. So yeah, Larry Ellison then owned this footage. Okay, but back to the JFK. All right, goes in on the right quadrant, right back here, right next to the occipital protuberance. Okay, and shatters everything out the right side. It explodes out. Exit wound, entry wound, size of the caliber. This explodes out from this pressurized vessel. Okay.
The major controversy surrounding President Kennedy's autopsy is the location of the head entry wound. The official autopsy report places the entry wound about 2.5 centimeters to the right and slightly above the external occipital protuberance, which is the bump in the back of your head, which is represented right here on the X-ray. One of the things that happens when a bullet strikes the skull is it sends off these radiating primary fractures that you can follow back down to the entry point. As the head expands, it causes these concentric heaving fractures that occur perpendicular to the primary fractures. Using this pattern, you can backtrack to the location of the entry wound. Several of the investigative committees that were set up by the government placed the location of the entry wound much higher up on the top of the head. If that were the case, this would be the fracture pattern that we would see. We'd see the primary fracture lines radiating downwards with the concentric fractures circling back up to locate the entry wound at the top of the head. If we compare these two images with President Kennedy's head X-ray, which is down here, you can see these primary fractures going upwards in this direction, telling you that the entry wound is down low. We also have these secondary heaving fractures that occur as the head expands, also pointing to an entry wound that's down low. So if we compare the two possibilities, the autopsy described fracture pattern versus the investigative committee fracture pattern, you can see they're quite different. And if you try to overlay them, you'll see that it matches much more closely with this image here.
But he went back into the left. With physics, okay, again, back into the left. Well, what would make him do that, okay? And this, what I'm saying, is not rocket science, it's not brain surgery. We're not forming Voltron here, okay? Take a balloon, blow it up, hold it, the balloon's out here, and throw it this way. You'll only get so far because it'll blow back at you. The amount of energy that this pressurized little unit here has, when it came out and it blew him back into the left. That's also why, and he had a lot of his skin still with the skull fragments on it. Okay, it went back like this, and you see it flap over his head like that. And that one chunk, basically kind of like how you roll up a ball of duct tape, you try to throw it in the garbage can, but it gets stuck, and instead of going all the way, it goes, that kind of like that. It flipped the brain matter onto the trunk of the car, and that's what Jackie ran and grabbed his brain. That's what human beings do. Oh my God, we got to put it back. He's gone already. But even in the movie Rambo, he's talking about at the end of the movie, yeah, it's like, hey, we're going to drive this car all until the tires fell off, but I can't find your legs. I have pieces of you trying to put them back together. Rambo, Mac Visok, the baddest of the bad in the Vietnam War, and he's just trying to put his friend back together. Because this is human nature. It's what you do. You just grab for the brain and try to put it back. Bullet went in, back into the left. Not rocket science. All that energy from that round pushing this forward, which again, in that particular case, the school book depository probably wasn't the shot site. It was probably, you look at, Kennedy was kind of down, leaning over a little bit. Okay, here to the right, book depository is up there. But right back here, what was right back here? The jail, the prison, where all you have to do is have the right credentials. It's a government building. if you're a high up, FBI, CIA, NSA, you're going to tell, these prison guards are going to tell you what to do. The warden's going to tell you what to do. He'd probably be honored to have you there. And guys can walk around with guns as long as they get the right uniform. Nobody carried badges back then. You just walk around in the uniform. How'd a guy do that? Not in that, but he had to go to this medical facility to try and get information on something. So he just bought a lab coat, walked in. The security guy goes, "Who are you?" He said, "Well, Bill told me I needed to go this way." "Oh, okay." He just walked right on by. Andor, the whole point of Andor. You can't imagine that somebody would just walk in and do that kind of thing. Now imagine if you're trained and if you've got the right equipment, right everything, and you open the window, because all the windows were open, they weren't supposed to be. We all seen JFK, direct shot from the back from the jail. Not discussing the Kennedy assassination. I'm just saying, for the sake of this argument here, you need to know this. So go back and watch the Zapruder tapes. All right, go to frame 313, and you'll see he's like this, and you see Jackie kind of like this with the crook of her arm. All right, frame 313 is the one where he gets hit, and you can see the blast coming. Now, frame 1311, take a piece of paper, cut it out. You know, go like this, measure the space between the crook of her arm and his coat, okay? And then take a piece of paper, cut that piece of paper, go to frame 312, and look at that, okay? And when you see frame 313, when he, bam, back and to the left. So essentially what happens is a bullet comes in. All right, it's indisputable. There's autopsy photos, okay? Even Nancy Gray said there's 2 shots that came from the front. So people are shooting twice simultaneously back in 1963. No. Now, possibly, but there was no 2 shooters. You didn't need it. But, all right, I'm going to move Bob closer here. Okay. Get him in the right. All right. I want you to see something. Right there. See how it lines up kind of with this? Okay. Hit with a bullet. So when you go and watch the Kennedy shot, and it's a split second, watch it, because somebody put it in slow-mo, watch it in slow-mo. Watch it on 1.5 times fast. All right, watch it in real time, and it's at the bottom of the screen, like right down here. So it's real hard to see it. As a brooder, obviously, you didn't know what was going to happen. But you can see it. You'll see just a little bit, kind of like your old man smacking you in the back of the head. I don't know if any of you watching this even have an old man. But yeah, you do something, old man smacking you in the back. Not hard, but just enough to where, ow, okay, I won't do that again. But you'll see a split right before he back and to the left, back and to the left. Watch that. Watch that, because that's important for what I'm about to tell you with this Charlie Kirk scenario. And there's a video talking about how it hit JFK, and basically you had, what's it called, lateral cracks, and then you've got something with an H. Basically, you got spiderweb cracks in between those, because all the pressure coming out from that bullet cracked this first, and it started cracking all through. So 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 lateral cracks, and then something with an H. There's cracks in between those. Looks like a spider web. So because of all that pressure, because it's the head. All right? Hope that makes sense. So that's what the Kennedy. So let's talk about Charlie Kirk. Now that we don't have to worry about the 30-06. All right? If you watch the Range Day Bro video, what does he say? The first thing he shows, and again, I would like to do this, put little clips. It's like where this shot kind of came from, but it was a plan view. It was a bird's eye view. So you're looking down. It's like, okay, you see the top of the building. So I don't know exactly whether it's from here, okay? But likely it's right around here. So you see this muzzle flash. Now to me, if it's in those itty bitty windows, I think those are the windows that are like 12 feet high, and they're just for extra sun or whatever, decorative. So basically nobody could really get anything in there unless you break out a window, right? But it could be a reflection, which we'll get to later. And time is of the essence, because I need to get this out there, because You guys are just spinning your wheels. So, shock comes in, right? Right above his ear, approximately. All right, then what happens? Okay, and this is where I was going to show you a video of Chris Martinson from Peak Prosperity. Older guy, gray beard, PhD, showing all the protractors and everything, and he thinks there might be a shot to come from here. No, I'll show you where it came from. I'll tell you what happened. So it goes in here. Okay. Now, if you watch that in slow-mo, and again, I'll try to link all the videos. I'd like to actually show this to show what's happening. So you got here, and then you've got this wound right here on his neck, which everyone thinks is the entry wound. But everyone says, what? It's like a record, a broken record. Well, it looks like an exit wound. Because it is an exit wound. All right? You don't have all this magic, magic bullets doing this.
If you want to watch telly, you should watch Scooby-Doo. That show was so cool because every time there was a church with a ghoul or a ghost in a school, they looked beneath the mask. And what was inside? The fucking janitor or the dude who ran the water slide. Because throughout history, every mystery ever solved has turned out to be not magic.
No. That's the size. This itty-bitty caliber. That's the size of your bullet. That's the size of your entry wound. Your exit wound, almost by definition, is going to be bigger because it's got all that mass right in front of it, like a snow shovel that's got to push it out of the way. And if you got hollow points, like I showed you, that mushroom, you get even more tissue that you got to push away, right? So it goes in here, and you get a wound right here. Okay, if this is true, one of two things has to happen, okay? Isn't it miraculous how that works pretty well? Yet nobody did this. Nobody said, well, because they're all trying to make the physics work, trying to do this because they believe what they're told on this. Like, we can't trust the government. All of a sudden, now we got to trust the government. And Candace Owens said it wasn't a 30-06. So now, that means Tyler Robinson's not the guy. So what else are they lying about? Or are they just incompetent? What's Hanlon's razor? Don't attribute to malice or be easily attributed to incompetence, mistakes, or whatnot, right? So here we go. This is where the shot came from, right? So even if we went right through, and that was an exit wound, I'm not certain on it, but I'm kind of on the no because they did find a bullet, which would make sense, and I'll explain that in a second, that if anything, it was either a fragment or it was pressure. Because there's a lot of pressure, right? So, and here's another thing. Nobody said, I'm sure plenty of people got metal detectors, and damn good ones. So all that crap that they paved over, less than 48 hours, they started paving over and redoing it. Well, that's kind of funny. Yeah, it is, don't you think? Go with a metal detector. Go in this 6-foot area right here. So if somebody finds a bullet, 4 to 6 inches into the ground, all right, that means this one that they found is a complete fabrication. Let's assume for the sake of argument that is indeed not the case. Okay? Let's say it went in, and this is just, it's either got to be a fragment or pressure or pressurization. It can be both. But there's things, they're called hydroshock. Okay? So essentially what you've got is, so you get a bullet. Bullet is, you see that round? Can you see these indentations? They're made because they fold it up. It literally looks like a bunghole, like a sphincter. And then everything, as soon as the primer hits and burns the gunpowder, like Hadouken, that was actually going to Hadouken! Wave motion fist is what that means in Japanese. So, but you got this. Okay. So hydroshock is basically if you took it and cut it like this, cut it like cutting a pizza. Okay, so when it goes in, it enters the body, okay, and the cuts, the relief cuts, kind of like perforations on like your insurance card, right? It peels off and sends those fragments further down to do even more damage because even if it wads up like that big old mushroom, it only pushes what's in front of it. But the hydroshock split out like something out of a sci-fi movie, right? And they're basically little razor blades that cut. They're not meant to destroy tissue, they're meant to cut tissue. But cutting means bleeding. You bleed out, you die. Pretty simple. And then the actual bullet will still continue. So if it was fragmented, it could have possibly gone through while other things fragmented. But let's say that the bullet's actually right there in his neck next to his T1. Makes sense because of what I'm about to tell you. So, where am I? Forgot my train of thought. So let's see. Bullet comes in here. Okay. Now remember what I said about, well, okay. Okay, that was it. First I got to get to this here. So when you're in a pool, about that deep in the pool, okay. So say Bob here is there's the water line. You go into the water line, go like that really fast. What do you get? Whoosh. Well, what is that? You get bubbles. Well, why do you get bubbles? Okay. Because you're moving so fast. Now, water is very cohesive. It likes to stick together. Okay. It likes to, like, you got some, like, two little droplets or puddles, and they kind of go towards each other. And once they touch, boom, it merges into one big one, right? You know, a lot of liquids do that, but water is very cohesive. But you can move your hand fast enough to where the water essentially tears apart. Okay. Now, this leads into, it was on many channels, but Chris Matheson, the guy, the PhD, and now he shows about ballistics gel. Now, ballistics gel is like clear gel, kind of looks like clear soap, and it's a little bit bendy, but it kind of almost mimics human flesh. But you shoot it to see how far and how deep it goes into and what happens to the bullet. So when you have a high velocity round, especially one like the size of a 30-06, what happens is it enters the ballistics. You can watch these videos. You've probably seen it. It enters the gel, and if you watch it slow-mo, it creates this massive cavitation, massive air pocket. Okay, then it collapses back in on itself, and usually what you see is like an explosion of bright light, and it kind of does it again, and then when it comes out again, it sort of spits out like, you know, like powdering a baby's butt, and it farts in your face, you know. So all the gas kind of escape out the hole that it's just made. So that wound cavitation is called hydrostatic shock. Okay. Now, a lot of bullets do that, and it happens in like 1,000th of a second. So, like you barely can't see it. You just the ballistic gel does this. When you see that massive expansion, and when it comes back in on itself, a lot of guys will say, and it's true, that there is some residual gunpowder, but that's not really what causes the explosion. There is, not that it stopped, sorry. There is a video, and I'll link it, and it was like a BBC. Submarines for years have been wondering what this strange sound is at the bottom of the ocean. They finally figured out what caused it. And it was this, and it's called a pistol shrimp. It's about that big, okay? And what this pistol shrimp does is it's got, like the fiddler crab, it's got a regular claw, it's got this big old claw. It cocks it back, and it basically has like a trigger like that. So when he wants to release it, it closes in, and it shoots out a bubble. Now, in the claw, there's an indentation, okay? And on this claw, there's a protuberance. So it's basically like having a clown nose. So you got the clown nose going into this hole almost meant for it. Well, the water displacement, kind of like when you go like that in a pool, it creates this air bubble, and it shoots forward. But the air bubble that shoots forward to knock out the prey isn't really what does it. What happens is the bubble shoots forward, and as the bubble goes like this, like the cavitation in the ballistic shell, when it comes back, you'll see like a little explosion, or like somebody lighting gunpowder, and it goes back again. It comes back. When the pistol shrimp hits that, the bubble comes out, and it's so cool when you see this. And the narrator is like, and when it collapses in on itself, you'll see that bright light. He said that surface area tension temporarily becomes hotter than the surface of the sun.
As the claw snaps shut, it fires a blast of bubbles. Incredibly, as the bubbles collapse, they momentarily reach the temperature of the sun. This implosion causes a shockwave that stuns.
And this is in the middle of the frickin' ocean. So this pistol shrimp goes, bam! And it becomes temporarily, water comes together, but it's temporarily hotter than the surface of the sun. And that, it's almost like like the pistol shrimp throws a bubble grenade, and then boom, when it collapses in on itself, it kills it stuns the other shrimp, then he goes and he eats them. I don't know if it's still alive or not. Talk to Pete on that one. I don't care. So when a bullet comes in, you've got that massive hydrostatic shock, that massive cavitation. And in the video he did, he used a 300 blackout, which is smaller than a 30-06. And again, like anybody who knew anything knew this wasn't a 30-06. I mean, again, if they're trying to cover something up or whatever, like, how can you be this stupid? And in my other video, why would you use that gun? Oh, did I say this before? Yeah, the M98 never made a 30-06, and they had serial numbers from 1898 on. So there's no reason he really would have used that gun. All this is fishy. And then you've got an old gun on a new stock. Okay, why would you use that as a hand-me-down? That's like putting a spoiler in a 57 Chevy Bel Air right between the fins. Stupid. So, if this is the case, which it is, bullet comes into his head. Remember what I said about a head? It is pressurized. Because of this thing here, this skull, it is pressurized. It comes in here. Where is all the energy going to go? It's going to go into the left side of his body. Now, what you'll notice, and this is the same, this is why I said I'm not being disparaged to you, Matheson, or anybody else here who can't seem to get this. See, you guys are the Wozniaks, I'm the Jobs. Cool, let's work together, man. Goes in here, all that energy's got to go somewhere. You can see right here, start on the right side of his face. As the bullet enters here, that energy's going to start doing this. Starts on the right side of his face, even his face starts cavitating. All right, you've got the back, which Ryan Mata, that's a Twitter video, but you'll see it. All right, going into, or the expansion coming out the back, all right, going out the front, and then his left side, especially his neck, really bulges on this side like goiter, and then you see the wound. That's why I say it's likely that it was just pressure, just like water in a pistol shrimp. It's moving so fast, it cavitates. It creates literally air out of nowhere. All right? That's how they, submarines, they create air out of nowhere and and they pump in water and whatnot. It creates air out of nowhere and it tears this tissue. Okay? So you'll also notice that you've got all this cavitation happening. Okay? Where's the cavitation not happening? There! Right there on his right side. Why? Because it comes in from here, entry wound, all the force and power is Hadouken, going the exact opposite way. You don't get cavitation here and you get this injury. Right? But I don't understand. How could you get all this cavitation? Okay. Actually, first, let me do this before I forget. Okay? Remember JFK? Back and to the left. Back and to the left. And it's on the, what's his name? Mario Nowal, NEWFAL, young kid, probably 20, something like that. They're all on, and there's another guy, I think his name's Matt something. He didn't put the names of them in the description, so Whitebeard and Blackbeard is what I called them. But that same thing with JFK. Okay, when you see that, first off, you see Charlie go like this. It goes like this, and then instantaneously the neck starts bulging, including the jaw, the right side of the jaw. Okay, and they kind of go back and forth between those. Now, the Ryan Mata film is from the side. Okay, that's where you see the cavitation from here. But you'll notice two things. Okay, now, anybody old enough, probably starting to get gray hair, probably need a prostate exam or mammogram. There's this game called Clay Fighters, and there's a Elvis takeoff, Fat Elvis, the big hair. Hey, what's the hair, man? Hey, what's the hair, man? And his hair was actually an attack. Now, watch that video with Mario Noel, Matt Blackbeard, and Chris Matheson. Now, you'll see his head goes like this. And he's got this, his hair up here goes like this and comes down because he gets hit so hard. He goes like that, just like Kennedy. Like that. But his is from here, so, okay? Let's see. Closer. See, it's kind of level with the, you'll see his head. Not rocket science, not brain surgery. We're not forming Voltron here. You can watch at regular speed, you can watch it slow-mo. Okay? His head goes down because he's getting hit right here. But it's at an angle, so it doesn't necessarily knock him this way. Which, by the way, which way did he fall? Oh, yeah, towards where the force is coming. Oh, well, rocket science. Comes in here. All right, and I lost my train of thought. You'll see his hair go like this, and that's when everything expands and explodes. And then you get the blood gushing out and he falls over. Okay, a couple things with this. So, what's his name? Chris Matheson was saying that he's talking to a neurologist, and when he gets hit, he goes like this. Now, I remember one of my hunting buddies telling me that he shot a deer in the neck, and what did it do? It reared up like this, and it fell over. When you get hit, and you get what's called decorticate posturing, not decerebrate posturing, that's another thing. That's severing the spinal column. That means he's got nothing. That means you're limp. You're basically dead. You've cut off every single nerve impulse from your entire body going to your brain. Okay? So, if that would have happened, 1, he wouldn't have ever had a pulse. Okay? 2, he wouldn't have gone like this. He just would have gone like this and limped like a ragdoll and just flopped in his chair instead of falling over. When he gets hit like that, decorticate posturing. He said, I was talking with a neurologist. All right? The neurologist said, well, you only get that if you have damage to, severe damage to the red nucleus. Okay, so what is the red nucleus? Okay, the red nucleus is an area in the brain. If you, right around there, okay, is your pituitary gland, your hormone master blaster. Every hormone's decided by your pituitary gland. Right around here, right there, in the middle of your brain, kind of pillowing, sandwiching, Oreo cooking your pituitary gland, a little bit higher. But that's your red nucleus, which is next to your cerebellum, which basically all your motor control is through your cerebellum. I know that because we couldn't see it anymore. Pete had find you. But they show it. We did surgery on this cat's cerebellum. Basically, the cat had no motor function. So essentially, that's why everything's right there in that part of your brainstem, right here, right inside, because that doesn't ever want to get damaged. You don't want to mess with that. You can't move, you can't find food, you can't do anything, right? So essentially, he says he would have had to get hit in the red nucleus. And they're saying, well, how could it come into here, first at a downward angle, shatter all his vertebrae, and then damage his red nucleus? If it would have gone here, even the expansion explosion, even if it was right here in the neck and not by the spine, would have done some pretty severe damage. Okay? But yet it's going to go up into the red nucleus? No. But you know what does? A shot to the freaking head right through the red nucleus. How are you guys missing this stuff? Well, it's got to be this. They said, no. Look with your eyes. What is it telling you? Remember Sneakers? When the code breaker guy, it's like, he dies and they're like, viewing the surveillance tape, and she's like, well, I left you a voicemail. And the blind guy says, hey, we played it again. It's like, we're not going to find anything. We looked, we watched this thing 17 times. He said, don't look. Took 24, sting. Listen. Watch. It's not going to be through here. What could hit the red nucleus? Oh, a shot right through here. Well, that makes perfect sense. Maybe we should start looking at this. I mean, even if they said all that stuff, I'd have been, well, that's the first thing I'd look at. Once the guy pointed that out, the Marine who talked to Range Day Bro, I'm like, well, that's it. So now I'm just showing you how all these pieces of evidence, all right, link to this being the actual shot. Okay? But you say to yourself, well, what about that cavitation? Okay? Cavitating all through here, his face, massively through here because it's going in the direction, and it always goes towards wherever the energy is, right? Energy goes where the bullet's going. Okay? What's missing here? Actually, not what's missing. What's here in place of something missing. We as humans, the spinal column has got to go somewhere to go down into our bodies and be protected by the vertebrae, which were shattered, right? All right? There's a hole. There's a hole here. The hole is called the Foramen Magnum, all right, which is Latin for giant hole. aka your mom. But the Foramen Magnum here, okay, is a hole. All right. Anybody who knows anything about plumbing, pressure, water, electricity? What is it? Electricity goes for what? The path of least resistance. Water, you hold water in the tank, it'll always start leaking. Where? Where there's a hole. Oh, a hole? So, if I got a lot of pressure, just like the JFK, which caused the back and to the left, you get a shot right here. It hits the red nucleus, okay, obliterates the brain, all this stuff, anything below it, probably inside it too. And another thing I forgot to mention, okay, the mob especially used to use .22 long rifle, which you kill squirrels with, the little, you know, they had a name for it. It was like the scrambler, the brain scrambler, because it would go in, it'd bounce around and scramble your brains, okay, wouldn't leave an exit wound, and best of all, when it came to the mob, so number one, you get shot, all right, you kill your target, all right, and if you had a revolver or picked up your brass, all right, there's no ballistics they could tie you to, and because of the actual bullet bouncing around, it gets destroyed. It flakes off. It's got flecks everywhere. So essentially, you can't ballistically check it against the gun that was fired because the striations are gone. It's almost a perfect weapon, which, when they said it wasn't a 30-06, but there was fragments in there, I said, here's another thing. You know what? You know what's going to happen? They're going to say, well, we don't exactly know what caliber it is because it was damaged. And they actually, I'll believe them if they say that because, well, isn't that convenient? Because now they can't match it to a gun, but they don't need to match it to a gun because it's not a 30-06, which is what they had of Tyler Robinson, which this is also why they didn't show you the shot before they showed you running, because he probably didn't take a shot. He was either a patsy or he was lining up and, oh my God, somebody got to him. I better get away. You know, I mean, you probably, but if I was him, I'd be like, okay, I was going to try to shoot him in the leg, you know, just let him know he could do it. I wasn't really going to kill him because they've been looking at me. This whole thing is set up. This is a professional hit, but, which we'll get into at a different time with all that stuff. But all that pressure goes down the Foramen Magnum, causing what? Oh, cavitation, including the explosion here, which I'm guessing, again, it could be a fragment, like a hydroshock bullet, one of the pieces coming up and actually shooting out there. Again, I really don't think, especially if they say there's one here by its T1 vertebrae, I really think that there's no bullet in the ground. But I'd take a metal detector and check. What Ronald Reagan say? Trust but verify, right? Well, you're not trusting anything. I'm not trusting anything these guys are saying. You guys are, because you've never been screwed by the government bad enough, I guess. But everything that they're telling you, again, it's either negligence, ignorance, or this is malice. They're trying to cover up something. But the cavitation happened, okay, and he's got the arterial spray right from this wound. But there was no blood at the scene. There was so little blood. None of these guys have blood on their hands. It doesn't make any sense. Oh, Bob. Oh, Marie. It makes perfect sense. Why? Well, what goes up must come down. All right, Newton's law of motion. Okay, you've got a cavitation in here. You've got all this tissue and energy being blown right down the Foramen Magnum into this chest cavity. On one of the videos, he said his heart tissue was basically obliterated. Because again, this is a pressurized system too. So is this. All right, I was on dialysis. Okay, your peritoneal dialysis. So inside here, you've got all your guts, and it's in your peritoneum. So basically, it's a sterile sac. Like your urine is actually sterile, unless you got an infection, obviously, because everything in this here, your body's like, nothing's getting in. This place stays clean because we don't want to deal with that. That's why your only tissue membranes to the outside world are here, 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 here. That's it. Your body's very well designed. And in this is your lungs. Do you remember the glass in biology class in high school where they got the thing with the two balloons and you pull down on the stretchy balloon and the lungs fill out? Because it's just a pressure differentiation. So, if anything, boom, blasted the hell out of his lungs, probably damaged his heart, okay? But there was no arterial spray. Why could it be no arterial spray? Because he didn't hit the carotid. Well, then what's all that blood? What goes up must come down, or well, what goes down must come up in this case. It looked like what? Like somebody vomiting. You got all this damaged tissue falls over in the direction of the bullet. There's probably a bunch of other stuff to talk about. I'll go look at my notes. I don't want to have to edit this video, but ladies and gentlemen, it was a 30-06. It was hit from the front. He was hit from here. Okay, so bullets and direction. Which do you talk about first? Okay, I'm going to talk about bullets first because what I think, and there's a link. So I found a guy shooting a 30-06, and it was suppressed. I remember saying that right off the bat. It's like, this sounds like a suppressed shot. What? Don't look. Ding. Listen. I can tell. I go into the woods. My uncle comes in a little bit later after work. All right. I hear a boom. I pretty much know what firearm he's got, what firearm he used, because they sound different. They're different sounds. Anyone's ever shot a 30-06? Loud as. Okay. This guy shoots a 30-06. I think it's like somebody in Russia or something, some other foreign country. Anyway, he's, and it's raining, maybe snowing, when he shoots that thing. And I know of this because, all right, I got a 7mm. I was going to get a 30-06, but 7mm, I wanted to do 700 yards because where I used to hunt, I wanted to make it all the way across there and at least do a clean kill. So I had a little bit better ballistics coefficient. But I almost got a 30-06, but I didn't. I got the 7mm. Now, I'm in a blind, a blind like this, sitting down. And normally I'm hunting this way, but they came across this way. So now this thing is what, about a foot out of the blind? I pulled the trigger. Boom! Obliterated the side of my blind. Now, probably because it had a muzzle brake on it, but still, it came back and obliterated. All right, very powerful stuff. So this guy, he shoots first, and it's like a 1.5 minute video, 30 minute 30, something like that. Maybe it's only 60 seconds. He shoots, and the amount of pressure differential that this causes hits it's basically just like a canopy, like a carport, right? And you see the rain drip off. The snow, it shook it and dripped it off. This is powerful stuff, and you're going to tell me it hits his neck, shatters the vertebrae. Bullets, I got to tell you how it did the damage to the neck. But you know what? I'll do that first. Bullet comes in here with a tighter shock or just a tissue, cavitates both directions. Okay. And now bullets, they do weird things. I'd be a bullet going either this way, which means it was from behind, like it was from a little bit from a front, or at least 90 degrees. Not this, not this, this. Goes in and turns a little bit and it crush, and it stops at the T1. Or the energy just obliterates the C2 to C6 and then lands here. Either could happen, but that's a hell of a lot better than, 30-06, stopping and just all the stuff comes out and the amount of blowback pushes the bullet back. Again, if it was, he said 12,000 pounds of pressure to stop that, to make it go 30 degrees down to the T2. Not rocket science, not brain surgery, we're not forming culture in here. What was I talking about? The bullets. So, I'll show you the 30-06. Then he does a 30-06 suppressed. A noticeable difference, but it's still got that. When you listen to the Ryan Mata, the guy with the beard, if you watch that I'll link, it was on Twitter. I hope it's still available. Okay, what you hear is something more akin to like a snap. Now, when you watch this video, so it's about a 5-minute video on the mark. I think it's 3:54 is when he hits the first cut, and I think it's a little bit later where both guys are using, and this would be my caliber of choice of what they use because of ballistics and everything. It's a 22. 22s have a tendency to shed, break apart and fragment, so you can't tell what it is versus, say, a 223. I think a 22-250 might have a little bit more punch. I forgot to look at the ballistics on that. I don't know. But the 22-250, this is what it sounded like. Now, what I wanted to do was take that video of the coyotes One of the guys got a 22-250 suppressed, this guy. The other guy got a 22-250 non-suppressed. And unfortunately, they got their dog next to the bathroom going, it's like, dude, back your dog off. Go sit, Rover. So the first shot, the guy was going, yup, 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 yup. He goes, kill him.
Kill him.
It's like you get, it's a really distinct sound, flat. You can hear it actually hit the coyote, not suppressed. So you can, then you go to the non-suppressed, and again, not a 30-06, much like, 22 says 0.8 bigger. It's a lot bigger bolt, a lot bigger cartridge. 30-06 cartridge like that, 22-250 smaller. Right, like, 30-06, 22-250. Okay, a lot of punch. It's like you got this itty bitty neck and this big old body. I like Bob here. It sounds to me like a 22-250. So when you hear it, and you hear it hit that coyote, then go to the video. And like I said, I wanted to make the video to tie these two together. Go open two windows, and you hear Charlie Kirk. It's the same. But it's versus his Charlie's happens fast. That guy's probably, I don't know, at least 100, 200 yards away, whatever. But when you hear that thwack thunk, and then you hear the 22-250 about 9-10 seconds later, you'll definitely know it's suppressed. And that exact thing, that I really can't imitate it very well, but it's very distinctive, like a snap or a thwack versus a paw. It definitely wasn't a 30-06. But 22-250, thwack, pull, breaks apart. You can't find out what you can't do ballistics to test the striations because the bullet gets shattered, so you never know if it matches to a gun. All right. And let's see what I was going to make with that. Never matches to the gun, and it's a high velocity. Matter of fact, that's one of the things I did write down here, and I will read this to you. So put it on the last page specifically for this reason. So if I can ever get to it, come on. So it's all Hornady, okay, 2019 PDF, 30-06. All right, 150 grain, the velocity is 3080, and the foot-pounds energy is 3159. A 22-250, 50 grain, so 1/3 the weight, but it's got 4,000 velocity. That thing's screaming. Most bullets don't get into the 4s. High bullets are in the 3s. Most bullets are in the 2,000s. And the energy, though, is only 1776. But if you're not killing a big deer and wanting to go through and do all this tissue damage, you hit the head. As long as you hit the head, it does that damage for you. That's all you need. And also, this is Trump. All right, remember Butlerville, PA? Yes, it was very great. It was great. Thank you, Ron Johnson, for getting me this map. He hadn't turned his head. He'd have been gone. The world would be completely different. All right? Now, I actually, when I'm hunting, all right, I don't wear a cap. I look like Tim Pool in camel, right? Okay, like this, take a shot. You're not really going to miss with this. Side shot. Again, what I do, I was tasked with this job. Yeah, and where? So now we get to the where. This is the part that I'm least confident of, but given the direction and given what I'm about to tell you, I think this holds water. And the good thing is that with all these cameras, okay. This, so if you look, there really was, when you look at the Range Day Bro video, okay, he focuses in on that bush. That's supposed to be that. Focuses in on that bush. That's supposed to be that sniper in the ghillie suit, right? Okay, but yeah, you'd have to hide. You'd have to go boom and then like pretend you're a bush again. Pretty unrealistic. But there was no one up on that second floor. And only, I think, one video said this. And nobody's talking about this. Well, why isn't anybody up on the second floor balcony? Well, that's for faculty only, faculty and staff. Really? Well, maybe you could find out who is on that second floor, right? Because in order to access that, it's not like old-fashioned where you had keys. You go to a hotel, they give you that same card, they just reprogram that key to that specific room. And if this is a professional, and also, what's her name, Colonel Towers, I can't remember who she's on. Colonel Towers Smith, it's a hyphenated name. She worked in I believe it was Air Force Intelligence, Army Intelligence. She said, Utah, especially Orem there, had a big CIA presence. I think 7 or 8 professors actually resigned or went somewhere else. It's like, well, why would that be such a big thing? Because Mormons. And it didn't dawn on me. It's like Mormons, number one, they're generally encouraged to learn more than one language. And 2, all right, if you're a missionary, you have to spend 2 years in a foreign country. In fact, it's the whole plot of the Trey Parker, Matt Stone, South Park creators' musical Book of Mormon. They go to Uganda, all right, and they're trying to convert people, yet they have to deal with the local warlord, General Butt, being naked. Why? Because that's how I like to kill people, when I'm butt naked. Great musical, you got to see it. But they go to Uganda because he wanted to go to Paris so bad, but no, he got stuck in Uganda. It's actually a really nice story. They didn't really get it in the end. It's worth the money, trust me. But they have to go overseas. Well, they're the perfect candidates for the CIA then, aren't they? Perfect candidates for intelligence.
But let me speak just for a minute about the Charlie Kirk specifically. So one of the, and this has been true for 80 years, one of the main thrust that the CIA has focused on is our university system. There has been university after university, Harvard, Yale, Columbia, that have had institutions set up. And you just mentioned the CAI, which I think is hilarious since it's kind of the CIA disguised, that are literally funded through covert means by the CIA. They function. Henry Kissinger had one set up at Harvard. And years later, it was outed as actually being a CIA front. And all they did once it got exposed as a CIA front was took his deputy, created another institution on Harvard, and put her over there in charge and just removed Henry Kissinger's name. So these things have existed for a very, very long time. And the CIA recruits at any university, and Utah is a great recruiting ground. You can go through article after article of CIA presence on primarily Mormon campuses, and that's not a slight against the religion, but because Mormons are required to learn multiple languages and go to other countries. And so by the time you get into college, you have all of this basket of skill sets that the CIA literally drools over. And so they are a target. And that kind of plays into that. So
if you've got all that going on, all right, all you have to do is give somebody access to that, kill the cameras that are there, because there's a door there. I'm pretty sure there's a door there. That's the least photographed area of this entire complex, is right there where that bush and that door was. Okay, and if you've ever watched the movie Lucky Number 11 with Josh Hartnett, I think we're going to try to link that down. There's a scene where he takes out somebody, all right, to get back at somebody else and start this kissing contest, which you'll find out later why. But there's a scene, and it's a 19-second clip where he's like this, right? He's on the roof of a building, but it's actually just one of those walkway roofs, and then the rest of the building there. He's sitting with a sniper rifle like this, right in the corner. He sees the guy walk out. Bam! And they see his bodyguard go like this with a gun. Before he realizes anything, he's hidden. It's here. Even you can see somebody doing this. He's black gun, black outfit. That's it. That's all the time it takes. You know, they say somebody's got a knife and at 21 feet. They've done newer studies on this. All right, an assailant can Bridge that gap at 21 feet with a knife before most people can draw their weapon. Okay, even though I went back, but that's how fast it can happen. Boom, there you go. Takes it apart, puts it in some, lifts up a flower thing, puts it in there, whatever, walks out. Not that hard, especially if these guys are pros, which I guarantee they were. And I guarantee you, the camera will not be working there. And well, who scanned to open that door at that exact moment? Who was the last person to open the door before Charlie Cook? Oh, that wasn't working. I had technical difficulties that day. How convenient. So, I think that's it, ladies and gentlemen. I think I pretty much proved beyond a reasonable doubt that he was shot from here. Let's go over this. Let's do a recap here. Okay. 22 250 round. Thwack, fook. Versus fast. Enters here, all right, pushes everything forward, starts the cavitation in his jaw, here, everywhere but his right side, okay, hits the red nucleus, causing him to go into decorded posturing, all right, either from the pressure or from trajectory modification of the bullet, right, goes down, crushes C2 through 6, all right, 7 and 8, there was something with C8 that they were talking about, all right, ends up right there, T1, under his skin. Just like Rufus, just like whatever the hell, Goldie locks there. All right, cavitation comes in everywhere except the right side, remember. Cavitation in his face, cavitation in his neck. The neck rips up tissue, all that cavitation. Disperse all that tissue blood, just like deer, like any hunter, and then you start dragging it. And especially if it's been sitting for a little while, you go to your buddy, say, I got the deer, it's cold in the back, and you think it's done with the blood, and then you ruin the nice garage floor that you just had epoxy because it's still dripping blood everywhere. And that's what it does. It gushes out like that, and it was a dark blue color. It wasn't an arterial spray. All right? If it was an arterial spray, they never would have got a pulse. Sorry, he would have bled out. Now, all this stuff, I'm surprised somehow if they got, whether they got a pulse or not, but if it did get a pulse, that means it's definitely not decervant posturing. It's decorded posturing. Hit the red nucleus, but didn't sever the spine. So how does anything go here and not sever the spine even though they broke all the vertebrae? By definition, it should have broken the spinal cord, severed it, or destroyed it to the point where it wasn't workable. So I hope I got everything on this. I don't have to make any addendums. But, ladies and gentlemen, let's focus on this. Oh, kid, they said it came from... Screw that. What are your eyes telling you? Oh, it came in here. Everybody's arguing about this. It's like, well, I can't make the physics work. It's like, then try something else. Why? You go in a different direction. I got Q, U in action, Scrabble. I got to make a queen, queef, xylophone. What? It's like, or maybe use some of the other letters and make a word give you points on the board. You're just sitting there, Scrabble blindness, and then wine bricking. You're given every single bit of information. It's like none of this works. But you know what works with every one of those scenarios? Every one of those scenarios? Right here. Right here. So I need to know how long have I been doing this? Hour and 13 minutes. I really hope I don't. I really hope I didn't miss anything. But I'm pretty much going to end the video. I'm not monetizing this. I don't care about money. I care about this crime getting solved properly. I care to know whether our president is a crook. Well, I am not a crook. Not saying Trump's a crook. Not saying anybody in the FBI or anything like that. I want to get to the bottom of this. There's something. My guess is it is something bigger. Although it wouldn't make sense. I'll get into that later. But it's definitely, all those theories are somewhat feasible. Oh, what I will say though is the whole thing with the Romanian angels. All right, there's two sides to that. When I was in educational philosophy class with, I swear to God, of Miss Lippy's older sister, beads, old hippie, long dress, and Chloe, I think her name is Jan. Real nice teacher, great teacher. But we talked about early childhood development and how kids need to be nurtured and whatever in a certain age. Well, the only thing good about communism, again, class F full, the only thing good about communism is that they'll do things to people that otherwise wouldn't be able to be experimented with or on when it comes to the human race. So essentially in 1965, Nicolai Ceausescu takes over Romania. In 66 or 67, Decree 770 comes out. What was that? No birth control, no contraception. Why? Because it's the state. Here's the difference, though, right? Antifa, they're anti-fascist, okay? Now, fascism sucks, okay? But I've actually read Mein Kampf, and I stuck it. I was like, I have to understand why the hell all these people followed him. And I don't. I mean, what was that movie about Saturday Night Live opening night? He quoted, I use emotion for the many, I save reason for the few. And Willem Dafoe's big boss guy goes, I want to put that on my wall. He says, isn't that a Hitler quote? He said, hey, atrocities aside, the man was a wordsmith. Honestly, I've never used the dictionary more times than reading that book. And it took me 8 months to read. I don't get it. I don't get how it did what it did. But even in there, he said, we are doing what we're doing for the state so we can benefit the individual. Okay, this is also the individual can prosper. Communism, there's no individual. It's commune. It's everything shared. Everything shared. There is no individual. You don't exist. There's a Twitter thread that got turned into a meme and said, well, what would you do if communism, came along? It's like, well, I take my organic farm, blah, 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 and said, your organic farm? So I'd rather be the one than the other, because communism is the absolute worst in the history of planet Earth, because it will never succeed because of 3 words. I want more. Oh, I want that. Or I want that, sorry. I want that. The Corvette, I want that. I'm going to work hard to get it. I want that. Look at that. Look at that Jew on her. Oh, I want that. Therefore, it'll never work. If my lazy ass doesn't do anything, makes the same amount of money as somebody bust their ass, they're not going to bust their ass. I've done that. Bust my ass, and all of a sudden it's like, it's pointless. I'm just going to slack off like everybody else. And I've got a hell of a work ethic. Anyway, so Nicolai Ceausescu, he says, I'm going to make a bunch of good little commies. We're just going to have all these women popping out, all these kids. They can't afford them because of communists, so they're going to go into the orphanage, and we're going to raise them. The state's going to raise them, and we're going to train them to be good little commies and good little soldiers. It's very similar to what Hitler did. But, again, more the individuals, just everything's in this commune thing. But that was his idea. So he had all these kids, and these kids in the crib, and that's what we were learning about, because the kids in the crib, they're about 2 years old, and they'll rock themselves to get the stimulation they need, to get the comfort they need. Babies will rock themselves. And that was learned because of Nicolai Ceausescu in Decree 770. Well, you have all these kids. Well, it's kind of funny if you want to traffic kids, where you go, where all these kids and nobody will miss them. But if you're actually wanting to help kids, where do you go? Okay, you go and help the kids. A lot of the kids, a big group of kids that need homes. So, but that's the only thing I wanted to say about that, because most people don't know about Decree 770 and why that came about. But so why Romania? All those other things, I haven't looked into them, not going to care. But essentially, I'm going to end this video. Thank you, Bob. Thank you, Tula, for any of you nerds out there who caught that reference right off the bat. Thank you, Rufus, for chasing that dough. But I'm going to end the video, and I'm just going to sit here and make sure that I didn't miss anything, go over this. But I'm going to cut it here, and please share this. Oh, if you really want to help get these things solved, Don't comment like Candace is even saying, send it on Twitter, send it to this. All right. Share the video on this. Okay. Don't send anything. Don't say anything unless you got something that might actually help. Okay. It's pointless. The Rage Day Bro, at least when I looked yesterday, okay, it got like 2 million views, 94,000 comments. All right. I did the math. If you look at one comment for 1 second and go through them all, it'll take you 3.25 days to go through every comment. And I started looking at the comments. Whoa, mind blown. Charlie was a crusader for the Christian faith. Trump, MAGA, yeah, you guys suck. Can you say something of substance? If you want this solved up, block it up with all that crap. And honestly, this goes for any other channel too. If you really want to help, say all that crap on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, whatever, but save the YouTube comments. Now, obviously, there's email you can contact, whatever, but really, just try and do that for us, please. Try and do that for us. All right? So, I think that's it, right? End of the video. Bye. There's one other thing I wanted to say. I know I'm dragging on, but no, I think that's it. If there's anything, I'll just continue this, but otherwise, share this as much as possible. Let everybody know. Have them start looking at this from this angle, and you will find your answer. You're welcome. Thank you, Steve Wozniak. I'm your Steve Jobs. Let's pull the iPod out of the pocket, shall we? Thank you.